My book this week on controversial literature, I have picked A Birthday Cake for George Washington. This may be a book that some of you have heard of, but I doubt many of you have read. This book was just recently published on January 5th, 2016, by the author Ramin Ganeshram and the illustrator Vanessa Brantley Newton. However, this book was pulled from the shelves by its publisher, Scholastic, on January 17th, 2016. So this book definitely fits our category of controversial literature. It is a children's book. It is a picture book. And I'll start with the summary of the book, given on the inside cover. Everyone's buzzing about the president's birthday, especially George Washington's servants, who scurry around the kitchen preparing to make their best celebration ever. Oh, how George Washington loves his cake. And oh, how he depends on Hercules, his head chef, to make it for him. Hercules, a slave, takes great pride in baking the president's cake. But this year there is one problem. They're out of sugar. This story, told in the voice of Delia, Hercules' young daughter, underscores the loving exchange between a very determined father and his eager daughter, who are faced with an unspoken, bittersweet reality. No matter how delicious the president's cake turns out to be, Delia and Papa don't have the sweetness of freedom. As I said, this is a sort of picture book. It's illustrated in such a way to really draw children into the story. And it is a very excellent story. I, who am not easily offended, was very offended by this book. You can see the illustrations are cartoonish in nature, but there are a few interesting points to the illustrations. One of them being the illustrator's use of everyday objects from the modern world within the book. You can see it illustrated here in this picture, where you see drawings of rolls and greens, but you also see a picture inserted into the image of a standard roasting pan, a modern-day pitcher, or even a bowl with a traditional modern look to it. This is done to help the children be drawn into the story and be familiar with it. The book also offers, in the back, a note on the relationship of Hercules and President Washington, and the recipe that Hercules uses to make Mr. Washington's birthday cake. There are a few little points in this particular part of the book that could be more than a little disturbing for a parent. Children probably wouldn't understand, and this book was recommended for 7 to 12 years old. One line is that we do not know the fate of Delia, Hercules' daughter, in the years following President Washington and Mrs. Washington's death, but we do know that as of 1802, Delia and her siblings remained enslaved. It is an interesting topic, and a hard look at what is a reality in this country, and something that does need to be taught to our children. However, showing them happy people enslaved is probably not the best way to do it, and one of the reasons that this book caused so much controversy. There is many illustrations of happy workers. The illustrator and the author both talk in their summaries and their notes about how they wanted everyone to understand how happy the people were that worked for the Washingtons. Even though in the notes section there is information about the fact that Hercules and his family were often sent back to Mount Vernon because Philadelphia had a law that said in Pennsylvania, if a slave remained within the state for longer than 6 months, they were automatically freed. So Hercules and his family was often sent back to Mount Vernon, which was outside of Pennsylvania, to ensure that they could still remain enslaved. You can see the happy workers, and this is supposed to be Martha Washington. And here is Hercules' underling, according to the story, a famous chef from France. So there is definitely some fictional elements to this story, but all in all, could be a good read, perhaps for an older child, maybe middle school, high school. I just don't believe I would recommend this book, A Birthday Cake for George Washington, to a young child. There's just information there that they wouldn't be able to understand. This is also probably one of the reasons that this book is now out of print and out of publication. It has been pulled from the shelf, and again, that definitely makes it a controversial piece of literature.